It's a great trade for the Bills. Great trade. For them to get a 2 for this version of Stefon Diggs, like there's a lot of things going on. I understand in the short term for 2024, who they're going to throw to. If you pull up their depth chart right now, it says Justin Shorter, Khalil Shakur, and Curtis Samuel. Are you kidding me? That's a joke. And they're still at the moment the favorite to win the AFC East. Buffalo plus 160, Miami plus 170, the team that's going to get a lot of love, the Jets, at plus 240. I mean, that's going to be an interesting conversation this offseason. But look, they got themselves into cap hell. They had to release Trey White. So now he's a member of that Ram secondary. He's out of there. This is what happens when you pay the quarterback and you overpay veterans. This is what they've done to themselves. So now they're going to have to eat it, I think, for a year. Even though they're still the favorite, they're not going to close the favorite. I don't see any way that they close the favorite, even with Josh Allen on this team.
No.
Stefon Diggs' cap number this year is $27 million. You can't keep that player. They had to get out of it. But the assumption around the league was, how the hell are they going to get out of that? Well, they got a 2 in 2025. So maybe it's going to be a Vikings type of a reset here for 1 year. Yeah, you don't want to pay the quarterback and then, go into the tank, but that's not how the NFL works. They're usually pretty quick resets, and they're paying a lot of dudes that get hurt a lot, and the Milano injury was a killer. He's probably their best defender. They overpaid Von Miller. Like that move ended up being a bad one so far. Even when healthy, he was not being very productive. So there's some poor moves that were made here, and they got themselves into this position, and I think they're gonna suffer some this season.
Yeah, Hyde and Poyer both gone on the back end as well. This team should not be a favorite to win the AFC East. You're right. They had to get out from under the Diggs cap number, and I understand that. And when it's an aging receiver who might not be the happiest in the situation he's in, and you might not be the happiest with him, and your last memory of him is dropping a pass that could have won you a playoff game, like I understand why this was sort of a mutual decision to walk away from each other. But that meant you weren't going to be able to extend him for a few false years to kind of save some cap space. This meant it was going to be, at least as far as personnel decisions go, a bit of an ugly breakup. And that's what this ends up being for Buffalo, Joe, if they end up having to sort of squash a year of Josh Allen's prime. I can't, that's hard for me to swallow if I'm a Bills fan. And they're more than 2-1, almost 2.5-1 to miss the playoffs on some boards, plus 240. That enters play for, in my opinion anyway, Aaron, when you're talking about a team that doesn't have any fantastic offensive weapons. Again, I like Kincaid and Knox. I don't want to take anything away from them. Cook is solid, but doesn't have any game-breaking options on offense for a quarterback that should have at least one available to him, and a defense that has lost so many weapons over the last year. This, for me, takes the Bills under the win total. This makes me consider, at that number anyway, plus 240, missing the playoffs, and it makes me question what the future will be, unless they have some sort of move that they pull a rabbit out of the hat at the draft. But I don't know if they have the compensation with all of these picks. You mentioned, it's a good point, 11 picks, but so many of these picks are late. Like, first 2 days of the draft, they have 28 and 60, and that's it. Like, they're not taking those picks and moving up in the first round.
When was Rashee Rice drafted? Couldn't have been that high. I mean, it makes me think of the Chiefs and when they got rid of, their weapons and everyone was freaking out about that. I mean, obviously the Bills are not as good as the Chiefs. Josh Allen got off to a rough, inconsistent start last year, but come December, they were rolling. I just think when it comes to the receiver position, and as bad as, like, Stefon Diggs was a guy that Joe and I laughed at and were looking to fade his props. Like,
he was terrible.
I don't think it's that much of a downgrade. I hope they do close as the second or third favorite in the division. And then I hope they get lucky with some receivers in the draft and they're not as bad as people think.
Last 13 games of the year, including the playoffs, Stefon Diggs had 0 100-yard games. There's a lot of games where he had 26 against New England, 29 yards against the Chargers, 24 against the Chiefs, 27 against the Jets, 34 against the Broncos. I will make the argument that he won 0 games for the Bills last year. 0. His biggest game of the year, he had that monster 3-touchdown game. I mean, he finished with over 1,000. And by the way, that's not the marker anymore. With this many games, that's not wow, you had 1,000-yard season. That's not impressive. When we were kids, you got the football card, they had 1,000-yard guy. Like, that's not a thing anymore. Not a thing. Not in this NFL. His biggest game of the year was that 3-touchdown game against the Dolphins. Remember when they creamed them? It was just on the road, and they won 48-20. No, that was at home. They still win that game without Stefon Diggs, is my point. I don't think he won them a game last year. It is a very different guy than what we saw a couple of years ago, this past season. And even if half of what is true about what was going on off the field and how upset he was. Remember the games that were being played last offseason too? And he made it known how he was unhappy. He was, by the way, Buffalo, winning situation. So I don't know if that argument is there or that he's going to a great situation with Houston. There's risk involved in this move if you're Houston. They gave up a lot, man. They are giving up a lot of draft capital over the last couple of years, and they believe that they're set for the future. Okay. I just view this as Texans didn't need Stefon Diggs. Stefon Diggs needed the Texans, but maybe as, a third option that he's going to be fine, but I don't know that he's going to be accepting of that type of role. The Texans, barely. I don't think this is going to last. They are still plus money to win the South at plus 110.
9.5 wins too, Aaron, and starting to get heavily juiced.
The Texans last
year. To the over. Yep, minus 134 right now. I imagine the reaction throughout the day will probably push that farther and farther. More and more juice on the over 9.5. I don't know if it pushes it to 10.5. That would be
10.5. Like that's an underbuy spot. It
might go to 10 for a little bit to test it. Yeah,
that's true. Well, now's the time. If you let's be clear. I think the one thing we've gleaned from this conversation over the last 15 minutes, if you look at this trade, as I think Joe and Aaron and to an extent Paul are all looking at it and saying, hey, listen, this is not the end of the world for the Bills. It's maybe a little step back. We'll see what they do in the draft. Then, okay, over 10.5, and probably ends up getting juiced, I would think. Maybe that's still your bet. You still like them to maybe compete for the division in a division where you don't know how Aaron Rodgers is going to react to Achilles tendon surgery and whether Tua can put together another healthy year. Maybe you still like the Bills. This is your opportunity. Conversely, if you're like me and you think this is a really nice move for the Texans, like I said, the luxury move that a team makes when they move from, oh, we're happy to get to the playoffs to, oh, no, we're going to win in the playoffs, then you're running out of opportunity to get those Texans plays in because the reaction to this is going to continue to ripple throughout the market over the next 24 to 48 hours. That's where I'm going, friends. I'm sneaking out in the middle of the night.
What are you doing?
11.5 with the Pistons. The Pistons. Yes. Have lost 9. That's exactly
you better double bag it. That is gross.
Ew. Dang.
Leave it to Joe to take it to the next level. Pistons have lost 9 out of their last 10. They lost a tough one to Memphis last time out. But here's the thing. Against teams 7th or lower in the standings, where they've faced double-digit spreads, they've covered all 5 times this year, including back in December against the Atlanta Hawks, who have laid double digits twice this year, just twice. And the only one they failed to cover, like I said, back in December against the Pistons. The Pistons will cover this. They'll lose. Atlanta's going to slide, kind of swerve into the play-in at number 10 and probably lose that first game to Chicago. Who knows? Even if they win, it won't matter because they'll lose to the Heat or the Sixers.
I hate the play-in. I hate it.
See, I love it because it's just at least
stupid.
In the 7-8 games, Plus, there's the opportunity for a Lakers-Warriors 9-10 game this year, which I absolutely love.
I'm really talking about the 9-10 teams. I hate that part
usually
of it.
the 9-10 suck, right? It's, it's like the annual Hawks participation trophy at this point. But Lakers Warriors, if it ends up being the 9-10 in the West, which it looks like, is going to be really fun. Anyway, back to Monty and the Pistons, who I just saw standing over there next to the jukebox. Probably had one too many. Come on, just one night. Me and the Pistons plus 11.5.
I looked at this one. I got a little nervous because it is the Pistons, but in November they only lost by 6 to the Hawks. So it was a while ago, but it's possible.
Before looking at the number, I was just looking at this matchup. I was like, okay, somebody's going to have a play on Detroit, Atlanta. And I'm thinking, Atlanta's playing well, 1-4 of 5. They beat the Celtics twice in that short span.
Yeah.
But I didn't think it would be 11.5. So I totally get the reasoning that the number is just out of whack. Because I was thinking, I might be picking Atlanta for this segment. And then I saw the number. I'm like, nope, I am not laying a dozen with that team.
Like, if this is 8.5, I'm like, no, I don't think so, because that can get away late, even if it's an uncomfortably close game. 11.5, even against the Pistons. I'm sorry, it's too much for the Hawks. The Hawks are like you just said, Joe. They're the annual 10 seed in the East, who we're all going to go, why are these guys here? Why are they playing a game of importance? Why are we all being forced to watch this in a national TV window? And then they'll lose, and we'll remember them for what they are, which is the Atlanta Hawks.